Good morning. Hello again. I am here in our classroom recording this video about how Americans settled West Part 2. Remember that in our first video we talked about how they went through with the covered wagons. We talked about Manifest Destiny. Remember that you need to have your homework paper out with you, and if you have any questions that I don't answer during this video, you're going to jot those down on the back so that we can talk about them tomorrow in class. Hopefully the audio on this one is a little bit better. I know some of you told me that you had a hard time hearing me. Something that you guys missed from the first video that I just wanted to touch on was the Homestead Act. Remember that this is a law that was passed to entice people to move west, and that they had to be adult males, and they were receiving 160 acres of land that was at a very low price, but they had to live on that land for 5 years. So today we're going to talk about two things that influenced westward migration, and those are the steamboat and the steam locomotive, or the train. These two inventions made moving west easier and less expensive for our travelers. So let's just get started. The steamboat is the first thing we're going to talk about, and it was used to transport cargo for the most part, and it was used on the large rivers such as the Mississippi and also on our canal system that we learned about. Excuse me. It was less expensive to transport items on the steamboat than it was if horses and wagons had to be hired to move cargo. So the steamboat was a great invention when it came to all of that. A major use of the steamboat was, like I said, to transport goods, but specifically between the south and the north of our country, because there were some raw materials that the south did that were really important for our industry that was going on in the north. So our manufacturers and our factories needed the things that were down in the south, and they had a way of getting those things from our south now. We give credit for this invention to a man named Robert Fulton. He actually wasn't the one that invented the steamboat, but he improved upon it enough that he got the credit. So remember, Robert Fulton invented the steamboat. The next invention that we want to talk about is the steam locomotive. This also made travel faster and cheaper. The railroad industry is a big part of the economic history of the United States. The introduction of the railroad system made a lot of men really, really rich during this time frame, and it worked its way across the whole country. Remember that the United States bought the Gadsden Purchase just for the reason that they wanted to build the railroad across that part of the land. The steam locomotive is actually a pretty neat invention. If you look here, there's a little bit of a graphic that's moving. You can see how it works real quick. Notice that at point number 1, the coal is shoveled in. It gets really hot. It heats up the water that's in the main part of the front there, labeled as number 4. It evaporates. It makes steam. The steam runs down a little tube there at the front of the train, and it then pushes the piston to move it forward and back, then releases the steam and lets it go so that it moves the crank that then turns the wheels. It would propel the train forward. As you can imagine, it would take a lot of work to get that thing started, but once it got going, it really could build up a lot of speed, and it was just faster and more convenient and more feasible to travel by train than it was to travel many other ways, and it was also cheaper. These two inventions, they changed the way that people thought about the West. They changed the way that people got out west, and it went from being something that only rough pioneers could do to opening the doors so that just about anyone could move out west. Now, something that we need to look at now is advertisements from this period of time really influenced the people's use of the train system and our locomotive, or the train system and our steamboat system, and really convinced people that they needed to give it a try and move out west. So let's take a look at some of these advertisements real quick. These first two ads are showing a few things. The first that you might notice is on the left, there's a long list of steamers. And what it's saying is that we have all these boats, and they're all going to leave. Any one of them is going to be leaving every day at 4 o'clock, and it's going from Sacramento to Stockton. It's carrying the mail, which was a really neat thing, and it was really letting people know, hey, we do this all the time. Don't worry about it, and we have a regular schedule. Now, the one on the right-hand side is telling you how fast the steamboat is, really. It's the Fast Steamer Flyer, and it's moving between Seattle and Tacoma. Now, if you were to take this trip walking, it would have taken you about 10 hours to make this trip from Seattle to Tacoma. That's just a rough estimate. Now, it would have been a little faster if you had a horse or a wagon, but it's still a long trip. And they're saying if you take the steamer, it's only going to take an hour and a half. So it was saying you could get to where you're going in a lot less time if you just use this really cool invention. And remember that these are traveling on our major waterways, like our major rivers, and our even some of our really far inlet sort of bay areas a little bit as well. This Seattle to Tacoma area is not really a river, but they use the steamboats there as well. All right, the next slide here is the newspaper ad about a canal, and it's sort of like our classified section today. It's letting people know that on the Erie Canal that there are many stops that can connect them with stages that's going to carry them elsewhere out west. And it's really informational. It mentions several stops, and it even throws in there at the end that this is the prettiest part of the Erie Canal, or the most pleasant part of the Erie Canal. All right, these next two ads are about the railroad system. The one on the left is saying that the railroad company is the best thing in the West. And it's saying if you want a farm or a home, there is land available out west, and the railroad is going to take you there. And it says that there's good soil for wheat and corn and fruit out west. So that one is trying to get people who may be more American dream and making a new life and farming to move out west and take the train. Now, the one on the right-hand side is telling people that the fastest and shortest way west is to take the train. It's a brief advertisement. It shows their neat little train, and it says the fastest and quickest way route between the mountains and the east is on our train, and it's going between Omaha and North Platte, and there's that it's recently opened to that area. So it's just saying this is the best way to do it. Our last ad is actually pretty neat. It is all about the railroad helping fulfill manifest destiny. You see here, Uncle Sam's taking one huge step from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean, and underneath his feet there is our railroad track. And this company wants people to think that's their railroad that's helping the nation fulfill its destiny. And it's the most direct way to do that is to get on the train and go from the Missouri River, rather not the Mississippi, the Missouri River to the Pacific Ocean. And you can see that this sort of an ad might entice people to take the railroad to fulfill manifest destiny. And these ads really did change the way that people viewed the West. It was a new way of advertising, a new thing of being advertised, and people really responded to it. So just as a quick recap, the important points that I want you to take away from this video are that the invention of the steamboat allowed Western travel to become faster and cheaper. The steamboat opened up trade between northern and southern parts of the USA by using the Mississippi River and to transport things. The invention of the steam locomotive allowed the railroad to open up the West where rivers were not usually available. And all of the inventions of this time made the idea of manifest destiny seem realistic and true. And advertisers used this idea and these new inventions to get people to move west and use these new inventions. So tomorrow when you come to class, we're going to be working on some advertisements about the railroad and the steamboat. So tonight, make sure you answer those questions. Make sure you do not forget them at home. When you're done writing them, go put them in your binder and your backpack so that you have them. And let your imagination kind of run wild and think about different ways that you would advertise if you lived back then for a railroad or a steamboat. So hopefully y'all got all the information. Remember, you can always rewind and watch again. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow. Bye.